Future Design Podcast.
This is Takatoshi Shibayama, CEO of Blockchain SG, listening to the Future Design Podcast where visionaries talk about what the future beholds. Today I've got Kamil Haque, the founder and artistic director of Haque's Center of Acting and Creativity. He has spent more than a decade crafting his method acting skills in Singapore and Hollywood and now coaches actors and business leaders. Because I don't really know much about Harvey Weinstein or like whatever production, business that he ran, and or even how that's even run. So, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Start with that. What we're talking about is a man who was good at two things. He was good at gathering financing from people who would back his films, and he was really good at networking within the artistic community to get the right directors, right script writers, the right actors together, and he sort of managed to merge both worlds. In many ways, he is the one who kickstarted Quentin Tarantino's career.
Right, okay.
And he was really, really good at those things, but here's the thing with someone who's really, really good at these things is that very quickly that power goes to your head.
Right.
And then what happens is you begin to believe in your own hype, and then you begin to believe you're infallible. And of course, where you want to exert that power or over people who have a difficulty in saying no, because you never know when your next job is going to come.
Yeah.
And that very often comes from the creatives. And so what he would then do is, as the news has gone on to expose, is he would exploit a lot of actresses for his own sort of devious sexual misgivings and desires, which is in many ways so terribly, terribly fucked up.
Yeah.
And rightly so, he's been exposed for the fiend that he is. And it's weird because I think when it came out, it was end 2017, I think. And then it was a big deal, started the MeToo movement. But after about 6 or 9 months, it's just sort of gone dead quiet about Harvey Weinstein. And then I think last week or so, he made an appearance at I don't know if you read this, at an actor's benefit. And basically it's sort of like a speakeasy for actors in New York City where actors can do poetry, they can do scenes, they can do all sorts of things. And the whole idea is to raise money for, I think it was for a theater company, if I'm not mistaken. And within the audience is Harvey Weinstein. And what happens is the host for the night and one of the performers for the night, they're fully aware that Harvey Weinstein's in the room. They're fully aware, and they're both women. One of them, I believe, was a victim of rape. And the host tries to call it out, and then she gets booed by people in the audience.
Fuck, why?
Boo, you shouldn't be bringing him up. Like, shut up, just do your fucking job.
Right.
And she's like, I'm pretty sure he's a rapist in the audience. Why are we allowing this man to be here in this sacred, safe space? Because this space is, to the best of my knowledge, was known as sort of a quiet, secret place for artists, to help artists, support artists. I believe the fund was for artists who are in need or in some sort of financial trouble,
right,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so
it's the exact opposite. Right?
Exact opposite of why you would have someone like Harvey Weinstein in the audience. And then later on, there's a comedian that comes on, and then she put this whole big missive on Facebook about how she was a survivor of rape, and part of her shtick or her set was to call out the giant Jewish elephant in the room.
Right.
And again, she gets booed. She gets told by other people in the audience, "You need to leave. I'm sorry, you can't talk about him. Like that's just off. That's off brand, off topic.
Wow.
Get out." And
is that him exerting his power again, like in that community, or
it's not him exerting his power, because all the photos and all the footage of him at this event is him being very quiet in the corner. It's not him exerting power, it's the legacy of the power that he has, or the fear that he still has enough control and enough people under his thumb where you don't want to fall into the wrong side. You know what I mean? You don't want to, you fear the consequences of not being on his side.
Right.
And so what happens is, just by the sheer presence of him in the room, people feel like, I've got to be mindful that he's there because he's still a big, important man to a degree. even though he's been stripped of all his titles, he's
Yeah.
been stripped of all his credentials, he's done enough where people still fear who he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Fuck. And to get to that kind of level, right? I mean, or let's say pre-Weinstein. I mean, you said finance and networking wasn't really together, right? So maybe you had finance and you had networking separately, and then he kind of like brought it all together. So how was it before him, and then how did it make him be so special in this industry?
I mean, it's not that it didn't exist before him. It was the fact that he was one of those people who managed to do it outside of the studio system, where previously you had to be a big, like Paramount, you had to be like a Fox Studios, you had to be one of those big boys surrounded by the big industry machine, and then everything just naturally fell in line because you are buying into the credibility of those big name brands.
Yeah.
Whereas he's one of those first go-to independent producers who was able to kind of wheel and deal and sort of maneuver and then get that going.
Right.
And so what you then have is the benefit of having someone who's outside of the system is that he's willing to take some risks, where the creatives go, great, there's a guy who's willing to give me money to make a film that I could never make within the studio system, aka Quentin Tarantino, right?
Right.
And then you've also got, on the other hand, the guys who have the money going, oh, I'm not just giving it to another company, I get to have these actual one-on-one conversations, and I have someone who can guarantee me access to these stars as well, because at the end of the day, the money that I'm giving, it might make $1, it might make $2, it might make $0.
Yeah.
But for the money that I'm giving, I would love to have a photo op. I'd love to have a dinner. I'd love to be able to schmooze with some of these creatives.
Yeah.
And this is a guy outside of the system who says, whatever your desires are, I can make that happen.
Right.
And for want of a better word, he was really, really, really good at that. And so what people thought was, I'd like to kind of feed the beast a little bit.
Yeah.
And of course, he's like, yeah, bring it. Let's make this happen. And here's the thing. And I know this is somewhat controversial, so I have to be mindful of what I say. He, for all of his misgivings and misdeeds, was still a brilliant producer. And there has been in recent times a conversation of how do we draw the line between the artist and his personal life, or her personal life. Where do we draw that line?
Right.
Like, he's really good at his art, but in order for him to be really good at his art, he clearly has some issues he has to work through. Like your Kevin Spacey's.
Yeah.
He's really good at his art. He clearly is a man in severe need of therapy and some intervention. Where do you draw that line?
People in that industry do seem to be. I mean, I'm not generalizing, and I'm not pointing out to anybody specific either. But to be very artistic, it always seems like there's something on the polar end of that as well, right? To keep that balance, whether it be the person's like, let's say, I don't know, like bisexual, or they have some mental problems, going through severe depression or something, to kind of balance that out. I mean, do you find that a lot in this industry?
Well, I mean, being an artist myself, being someone who works a lot with artists, I would be the first person to say that the people who gravitate most to the arts are people who are broken. And broken by, in many ways, the societal definition of broken. In many ways, these people are, if I were to steal a term from Japanese art, they're like kintsugi kind of thing. They're broken, but they have like these beautiful golden streaks in them, and they are fully whole in their own way. And in fact, they're more humans than humans.
Right.
And because they're broken in that sense, they're more prone to expression. They're more prone to being unfiltered. They're more prone to being uncensored. There's a saying, the artist is meant to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. And what you have is, in a world that is driven on repression, suppression, and non-expression, an artist is someone who is desperately trying to do anything but these three things. And so what you're going to have is you're going to attract more of the crazies.
Yeah.
You're going to attract more of the people who say, I don't want to be censored. I don't want to be filtered. I have something I want to say. And where do you go, okay, how do I help you channel this, but do it in a safe, appropriate manner? How do I help you channel this, but also make it palatable for these people who may not be ready for something like this? And so you're asking the artists to begin to be mindful of their message, but also be mindful of practicing self-care. Otherwise, they burn out really, really quick.
Right.
And there's any number of artists who have burnt out.
Mm.
And then you're also asking an audience who has been fed a diet of repression, suppression, non-expression to go, are you willing to have your eyes and ears open to something that you may not be ready for? Are you willing to hear things that you perhaps would prefer not to? Are you willing to confront issues or have your life reflected back to you on stage or on screen in a way that maybe isn't so pretty and nice and polite? And it's a very fine line constantly for both the artist and the audience to tread. Yeah.
Interesting. And do you think you find more people like that? So going back to like the olden times where they're making movies and you had this people, actors and actresses, do you think it was the same back then as well? Like, or I don't know. My question more is like, has there been a lot of people being drawn into this industry who has these certain, kind of problems? I wouldn't say problems, matters that are happening to them, being drawn into this industry because it's a part of, I don't know, an expression. It's part of a therapy or something, and it just kind of vacuums all these people into it.
I mean, what you're dealing with now is the arts as we know it today is at a major crossroads of trying to figure out whether it wants to go down the route of visibility or it wants to go down the route of credibility. And in just as recent as last week, I think Scorsese did a big op-ed in New York Times about how much he has a disdain for Marvel films because he does not consider them cinema.
Right.
He considers the people who make them cinema. He considers the artists, the actors, the directors, the story writers. They're all artists, but because they're part of this grandiose machine, the entertainment industrial complex, what happens is it's created a homogenization of the arts, and then therefore to him, it's not cinema because it's not making you think at all. It's not making. It's not designed to make you feel. It's like a basic. He called it like basically it's a Disneyfication or the theme park version of films.
Right. I see.
And so that's the visibility aspect of things. And then you've got your Scorseses, you've got your David O. Russells, you've got these other filmmakers who don't have access to the Mouse House kind of funding, who don't want to make your next big superhero something or other, who want to make these films with perhaps a message, with perhaps some of that grit, perhaps highlighting people on the fringes of society. And to me, there's a credibility in that, but then within that credible nature of things, you don't have the commercial powerhouse of the visibility of big branding. And then the big branding doesn't necessarily have the credibility of... Right. Do you know what I mean? So then what you're dealing with is where do you draw that line? Can both coexist? I think both can coexist.
Yeah.
The question is, can we allow an environment where these people can borrow from these people can borrow from these people so that they can find a way to create almost a new form of cinema where even now when we're seeing the democratization of the arts where you've got your content creators, your YouTube people, your Vimeo, your TikTokers, whatever you call them, is quite clearly they're buying into, I want to be a star, I want to make a quick buck, I want to be visible because I just released a 7-second video every day for the next 10 days, whatever it is how can we ensure that with the ability to be visible, we're not just putting more dross and crap out into the system?
Right.
Can we find a way to, now that everyone has a way of putting work out there, that eventually this work can evolve and elevate into something that has a message behind it, a proper intention behind it, I want to be a star, I want to be the next whatever it is. And that's tough. That's tough to balance.
Yeah, I'm sure. And because, as you say, like democratization of content creation has flooded the whole market.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say even market, the whole world.
Right.
With the various ranges of content quality, right? And how does the the movie industry or the film industry maintain that quality, right? Because nowadays I feel like these indie movies that you could make with a much lower budget, do pretty well as much as a highly well-funded film as well, right?
Yep.
And the cost of production has gone down so much as well. I mean, maybe the group of us around here could just start a movie and try to do something, right? So while there's so much money still being thrown at this industry, I mean, like how do they like kind of make sure that they're making quality stuff? Because now like everybody's making films, right? Like even Netflix is making films.
Your Apple new streaming service,
exactly.
they're gonna
everybody, and there's so much money in this, right? And to grab people's attention and keep, cause now it's like all about binge watching, right? And it's not just about the movies. It's about like TV dramas and things like Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones. All these were huge successes, and they went on for a very long time, right? And how do they kind of like be able to create that kind of thing over and over again?
So I think before we can even answer that, we've got to understand what the old models used to be, right? So previously the model used to be production, distribution, exhibition. And all of that was, so production was controlled by the major studios in Hollywood. Distribution was very often, they already had stakes in the Nickelodeons or the movie palaces. Right? And then, so either they own them or they part own them or they start a strong arm tactic. You better start distributing my films. And then exhibition, it's all sort of interlinked in that sense. Now, what happens is with the democratization, production no longer belongs to the studio. Distribution, anyone can just put their crap out online, or if you're smart enough, you can put it onto one of the streaming platforms and so on and so forth. And then, this whole three-leg system doesn't really exist anymore. I could be doing all three myself from my own bedroom if I really, really, really wanted to. That's the big picture. Now, within the studio system itself, what you're talking about is you've got your summer tentpole pictures, right? Which is your big special effects driven Independence Day, whatever it is. Doesn't win any awards, but it brings in lots of box office money. That money is in turn used to fund your Oscar-winning, your Golden Globe-winning films at the end of the year, which win all the awards, which gain the studio credibility. Like, look, I won an Oscar for XYZ film, so therefore, financiers, you need to back me so I can make my next big Star Wars Episode 27 or whatever it is, so I can make my next whatever with Christian Bale or Tom Hardy or Daniel Day-Lewis or what have you. And so that cycle sort of repeats itself.
Oh, is that how it works?
And then what happens is then the studios go, oh shit, we can no longer do this because Apple TV has come in, Netflix has come in, your YouTubers have come in, YouTube Premium, is it YouTube Red or whatever it's called now, have come into play. And then they go, okay, quite clearly we have people who are happy to stay at home and binge watch. They don't really necessarily want the cinematic experience. That's one. Two is they're concerned that the cinematic experience that you're getting at home is something that you can actually replicate, if not do better, with the advent of this new TV technology where you got like the TVs that are like slightly bendy and then immersive and then the 3D AR, blah, 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 glasses.
Home theater systems.
Correct. So then cinemas are thinking to themselves and the studios are thinking to themselves, how on earth are we going to compete with these guys? So then what we're seeing is we have, in the last year or two, we're seeing a lot of either your big production houses or even some directors saying, stuff that goes on Netflix, stuff that goes into streaming that's meant for TV and social media viewing, that's not real cinema.
Right.
Which is, obviously now you've got other people who are saying, no, we're creating content. Content is content. Just because it's not meant for the cinema doesn't mean it's good content.
Right.
And then you've got your award-winning bodies like your Oscars, your Golden Globes, your traditional sort of brokers of you have talent, you don't because you won an award and you didn't. Now they're saying we have very hard and fast rules. If you want to qualify for an award, your film has to be screened. So then the guys who are going, I don't want to be part of the studio system. I just want to go be part of the streamings. Now go, oh crap, how do we circumvent this? I know what we'll do. We'll do a limited release, just enough in the cinemas for the minimum amount of time. As soon as we've qualified for that, then we take it away from the cinemas and then we put it on the streaming services. So like a big case in point is Scorsese's new film with Pacino and De Niro called The Irishman. It's going to be in the cinema for 2-3 weeks max, something like that.
Huh.
Then they pull it away, and that's just enough time to be considered for an award.
Right.
And then after that, they have
Yeah.
it distributed on Netflix, because Netflix is the one that produced the film.
Right.
So they're finding sort of clever ways to circumvent and navigate this new sort of these new OB markers that have been laid out
Yeah.
for your content creators and your streaming services.
Mhm.
Now that that's there, cinemas and your production houses are thinking, okay, so what are the ways in which we can still draw people to the cinema? And so you have people like Ang Lee who are trying to sort of pave the way. He just did a film with Will Smith called Gemini Man, which honestly was a piece of shit film.
Really?
But it was the first film where, do you know the basic premise of Gemini Man?
No.
He
wait, yeah. I heard Will Smith talking about it because he was promoting it on some TV channels. I forgot what it was, but it's like he's a hitman, and then his like younger hitman comes over to kill him. Right?
Correct. So it's Will Smith versus Will Smith, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if enough people know about this, but the younger version of Will Smith that's in the film is actually 100% digital.
Right.
So it wasn't some dude who was wearing like a green screen, whatever freaking outfit. It was a pastiche of old Will Smith performances from Fresh Prince, from Bad Boys, from Independence Day. They managed to sort of almost, like the deepfake sort of technology, use and pastiche that with a digital human.
So he didn't do any acting of any kind?
For the young version, none.
Really?
None.
Huh. Because on that program that I saw him talking to, I think it was Trevor Noah.
Okay.
It was like on a Daily Show.
Yeah.
And he was saying that he had to kind of like try to rediscover how he was before to act that younger role.
To the best of my knowledge, I'm pretty sure like he had no say. So I think I saw the same clip. And what happened is on the very first day of him meeting Ang Lee, he goes into the war room, as he calls it.
All right.
And Ang Lee has got like 12 different screens, one showing Bad Boys, one showing Independence Day, one showing whatever it is, Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
And he's like this close to the TV, and he's like he's talking to Will Smith. He's not really talking to Will Smith. He's like, you see the way that your mouth sort of turns that way? Yes, that's good. We're gonna keep this. We're gonna put this into the new Will Smith. You see, and then the way your eyebrow rises in that one. Yeah. We're gonna take that and we're gonna put that into the. And he's like, the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, what are you smoking here? And to as far as I understand it, he did not at all participate in the making of young Will Smith, other than perhaps he gave some input as to how he might behave
I see.
back in the day. But it was all him playing him in his current day versus essentially this green screen version of him, or this digital version of him. And that is one of the many ways that your studios and your production houses are trying to do things differently, where I'm told, because I didn't see it in 3D, I saw it in 2D, and that was 2 hours of my life I'll never get back. But I'm told, watching it in 3D, it is one of the most immersive films that has ever been done within 3D.
Right.
Also, he did a film I think 2 years ago, and I forget the name now, where it shot on a very, very, very high frame rate, where home TVs are, as far as I understand, not ready yet to handle that sort of capability of such a high frame rate, where it looks so lifelike, it looks almost fake.
Right. Okay.
And again, it hasn't really found a niche audience yet.
Yeah.
But he's sort of trying these things because he truly believes in the cinematic experience of an audience gathering in the dark, to have the lights go down, to see this big sort of 60-foot sort of thing experience happening. And I do think there's a certain magic that happens in cinema that watching at home and watching via your device has yet to replicate. So I think cinemas still have that advantage, but until and unless we find a way, or they find a way to make sure that your home audience, who is now fed a constant diet of entertainment options at home and online, unless they find a way to beat that, I think in due time they're gonna find their movie houses are gonna have diminished audiences. I was reading a book recently, and I forget the name of it. And one of the ways in which they're trying to make the cinematic experience more immersive, right, is they're trying to find a way to create neural feedbacks for the audience to match whatever the character on screen is going through. So imagine, if you will, almost like a Clockwork Orange type of setup, where if it's a horror film and whatever, Nev Campbell's running from the guy with the knife, the audience members are hooked up to neurotransmitters. So if she's feeling fear, enough simulators or stimulators go off in your own body where that same flight or flight response that she has is also triggered in you. So then it feels even more like
Wow.
Which
That's pretty fucking awesome, though.
It's awesome, but it's also, can you imagine? Okay,
but horror movies, I'll probably like fucking shit my pants.
exactly,
right? I mean, that's what would happen, right?
No, but now imagine this, right? If a movie like Scream 7, whatever is on, and they have these neurotransmitters, if you happen to sneak into this theater and you stand near the front of the audience and you see everyone like in Clockwork Orange just hooked up to different wires going, that would be horrific and so horrendous on so many levels. But I mean, I would not be surprised if we go that way, where we want more immersive experiences. We want to feel like we have the illusion of more control over our entertainment options. And it's scary because careful what you wish for, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that could lead to so many different things, right? It's not just like a movie experience. Like you control people and you know, I mean, I guess you could also use that for like psychotic like treaty and stuff like that too, right?
Yep.
But you know, obviously, you know, it's a kind of Orwellian kind of idea.
Exactly.
In a way.
Exactly.
You know, it's like a more Matrix thing where you like hook yourself up and you don't.
Yeah.
The thing is, like I read so many you know, like I don't know, stories and stuff where, you know, like, are we actually in Matrix? And then it's like, is it really, you know, can we actually pull it off? But I've heard that also that this technology is actually really coming, right? And it's not just like the cinematic experience, but like you can hook yourself into a game or whatever it is, and then, you know, basically your brain is somewhere else where your body's like
almost like an avatar type situation. Yeah.
And that could, obviously you could use that for games, or it could be, you know, you could even use that for like a vacation, right? I mean, you don't have to go anywhere.
Like the holodeck in Star Trek or whatever
exactly,
it is. Yeah.
But you know, that's really awesome in many ways, but it's really fucked up in many ways as well, right?
I mean, it's so fucked up when you think about it. Because I mean, like when they bring back like Tupac from the dead or Princess Leia from the dead, I mean, where do you draw the line on that? I mean, that's just weird and bizarre. On the one hand, you give new generations access to these people who would have never seen a Marlon Brando or a Tupac or whatever it is on screen. And then on the other hand, like, they're dead. Leave them the fuck alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just recreating them over and over again. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I went to see Terminator instead of the Gemini Man, actually. And then I don't know if you ever
I did the new one, the Dark Fate. Yeah.
So you know in the beginning where it goes back to Sarah Connor.
Yeah.
She's in like.
Wait,
like
spoilers,
Panama.
everyone, by the way. Yeah.
In Panama or something. So it was like Costa Rica.
Costa
Rica. She was sitting down, and then Terminator comes in and kills John Connor, right? I mean, but they were actually young, right? I mean, she was like how she was in Terminator 1 or 2, and then John Connor was there.
Really
the same
Edward
same
Furlong, I think his name is. Yeah.
So how do they do that? I was thinking about how the fuck did they do that shit? You know,
I would not be surprised. So it's sort of like that Benjamin Button sort of technology where again, or they tried that with the you know, they had like the offshoot Terminator with Christian Bale that was like that went somewhere and then it just they killed off the franchise.
Right.
So they brought back Arnold Schwarzenegger in that one as well, and they got a guy who has the same physique as Arnold Schwarzenegger to play Arnold Schwarzenegger, but they replaced his head with the head of a young Arnie within that film. So it looks like you're watching like a young Arnie who's got the same physique. Because obviously he's way too wrinkly to play that, right? And so I would not be surprised if they use similar, if not the same technology of someone with a similar physique as a young Linda Hamilton, as a young Edward Furlong, and then take a pastiche of all their old outtakes and footage from previous films, and then like plonk that on top.
I see.
It's
so they can do any type of facial expression then.
It's like a deepfake technology, right? Where, you know, on the one hand you go, wow, that's incredibly that's incredible that you can manipulate a performance out of anyone. But also the fact that you can manipulate the performance out of anyone is so scary if it is inappropriately used.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And again, where do you draw that line? And
Mm.
then and where do you say, oh, but I'm doing it for art's sake?
Mm.
But there are also people who say this technology would be really great in other hands and in other
Yeah.
purposes, where political ads, like
Sure.
I forget who it is. There's a governor right now in America who is purposely running ads about Mitch McConnell being pro. Is it Mitch McConnell or Lindsey Graham being pro Green New Deal?
Right.
And people are just lapping that shit up, thinking
Yeah.
it's like, I can't believe my Republicans is into like the Green
Yeah.
New Deal. But it's what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's scary to think that that's happening.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, or Hugo Chavez can live forever as
Right,
well, right?
right.
Yeah.
Or worst, in the worst scenario, you have your old school dictators coming back from the dead. You have Hitler who's delivering another speech again,
Right.
and then already there's a problem with the white supremacists and
Yeah.
neo-Nazis. You don't need another freaking like Matrix version of him to lead
Yeah.
a new generation.
Yeah.
So wrong on so
Yeah.
many levels.
Well, the thing is, like, it doesn't even have to be a real person, though, right? So let's say you can start making your own fictional character and then putting that. So then, that you'll never see that person, right? So you don't have to worry about them, being assassinated, or they age, they have a mental breakdown, they start killing everybody else. I mean, you can perfectly maintain a North Korean regime
Yes.
with a fictional, head of the state,
Yes.
and run the whole country,
Yep.
and forever,
Right.
basically.
Because if you've recorded enough footage of him and enough audio clips of him, you can you're right. You can manipulate that for years, and you wouldn't know that he died 50 years ago. But it looks like he's never aged, and he's the glorious eternal leader who literally is an eternal leader because he doesn't age a day.
Yeah.
That you're right. That I didn't think about that, and that's scary to think that could potentially happen.
Yeah, because that's what most dictators want, right? They want to live forever,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And they're always thinking about ways to live forever. So why not, get them a digital version of themselves that can freaking live forever, right? I mean, we already have that technology,
Yep,
so
yep,
it's
yep.
actually really possible.
Yep.
So now you start to think, okay, so how does anything in this world now, with that technology, is like really authentic, right? So it's not just like in dictators, but even going back to like the film industry or music or whatever it is. I mean, they could be. I mean, basically, it doesn't mean that it doesn't. It means that they themselves are not even in it anymore, right? They could just sell their face, and then have anybody create movies and music with that face, and then you just like kind of it's like a rent. You just kind of like mint money off of it, right? I mean, is that do you think possible?
It already is. It already exists. There's a company that has the rights to, I want to say, is it 17,000 or 19,000 different dead personalities, and they are the go-to company now. If you want to revive a dead person and you want to rent them or create either a hologram version of them, or you want to use their likeness in films or TV
Right.
shows, you can actually begin to approach this company for that. And I don't know. I'm not for that at all.
There was a movie with I think it was Al Pacino. I forgot the name of the movie. Maybe I'll look it up later. But he creates this beautiful lady.
The AI. Is
Yeah.
it not AI or something like that?
No,
Is it with Scarlett Johansson?
No. I can't remember. It was some model. I mean,
Okay.
in reality, it was some model, right?
Right.
I mean, but she didn't exist. So he just made her out of nothing, right?
Okay.
And then, but she was the main actor for all the movies and everything. So everything was completely fake. So you go into the studio, there's nothing but a TV screen or like a monitor and a computer set, and it was just Al Pacino sitting there, right?
Okay.
And so when I watched that thing, it's like, and now you actually, this is like a long time ago, right? Maybe more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So you can actually make a movie with nobody, like no real people, right? There's a hologram singer, like anime singer that does concerts. I don't know if you know this one. I forgot the name, some Japanese name.
Okay.
But she does concerts, right? And she's completely an anime character, and it's a hologram. And then everybody's going to her concert again, like and so basically you can make that into a fictional person as well, and then make whatever you want out of it, right?
Right.
Maybe you don't look cool, you don't look beautiful, so you just make yourself look hot or gorgeous, whatever it is, and then sing to it, do whatever you want with it. But then the fictional character goes on as a hologram.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm familiar with some of these things that you're talking about, and again, it goes back to that credibility versus visibility thing, where the more stuff like that gets proliferated, at a certain point, people are gonna go, yeah, but I'm tired of the fake. I can, to a degree, I can smell the bullshit.
Right.
I want a real experience. I want a human connection. I don't foresee that disappearing anytime soon.
Yeah.
Where what is it? That recent film, Alita: Battle Angel, which is sort of like this anime meets live action film, and as human as they tried to make her look and feel, right down to the fibers of her hair and the freckles on her face and all of that stuff, it is still not real. And so you want to believe it's real, but there is part of your logical brain and part of your human, the heart, that goes, yeah, no, I don't feel enough for quite clearly what is fake. And the more we get fed all of these deep fakes, these holograms, these like this Japanese singer anime type character, that is definitely one route we are definitely going to go. I definitely see more and more and more of that happening. I do know that there will come a time that there will be a pushback where what you want at the end of the day is you want to feel like that person on screen is someone that you aspire to be. You want to feel like that person on screen is suffering in a way that you have suffered quietly.
Yeah.
You want to feel that that person on screen is saying and feeling things that you wish you could, but you can't, or you don't know how to. And up till now, technology is not able to do that. And I hope to God that doesn't happen, because A, I'll be out of a job, but B, it will rob the entirely beautiful human experience that comes from participating and being an honest member in the arts, where we have to remember that the arts and the word theater, the word theater is an ancient Greek word for the seeing place. You come to the theater when the lights go down to literally have your eyes open to something, to literally have your heart opened, where you can experience a form of catharsis because of what happens on screen. But if what happens on screen still feels fake, then that level of catharsis will never be to the extent that it could be, is what I would like to believe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure as thrilled as people are watching this Japanese anime, fake, whatever it is, it's not nearly the same as, say, watching, I don't know, like a Michael Jackson in live in concert, or a Frank Sinatra croon a number to you and look you in the eye, you know, and you're like, oh, that's just not gonna happen from an anime. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's definitely for sure. But there's always going to be like a combination, though, right? Because like even right now, whatever you mentioned, the Marvel's music, Marvel's films. I mean, it's mostly CG, right? And the character themselves are not actually really in that moment. They're just behind a green scene. What was it called?
Green screen.
Yeah. And then acting with nothing, you know, in the background, right? I mean, so there is kind of a merge, and it seems like it's going to be more and more of that.
It is, and here's the good news for actors, and here's the thing is, as long as we continue to use human actors, even if we go down the route of everything is fully green screen, what that will mean for an actor is that even more they're going to have to develop a high sensory awareness, which will then allow you to have a more vivid imagination. Because if I'm acting opposite a freaking tennis ball and a stick, I better have a damn good imagination to believe like that's my lover from whatever, some deserted island. And otherwise people are going to be able to smell that something's not right about this. So to me, I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing that we're going to, I want to make it very clear, it's not a bad thing that we're going down the route of more CG stuff. I think there is a value for that, because then we're able to explore worlds and universes and stories that were previously limited by what studios had available to them.
Right.
But we need to encourage, or at least I need to find a way to encourage actors that, because there's more technology, we have to find a way to make ourselves invaluable in the face of technology being our greatest competitor, and also our greatest asset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely. I mean, even the quality of acting has to go up as well, right?
100%.
Right, because you're not actually talking to a real person, or there's nothing in the background, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Because in a way, like if let's say you were right now a tennis ball and a stick, right? I'm not actually talking to Taka. I'm talking to the tennis ball and a
Yeah.
stick. In a way, I literally have to have my soul, my almost like my Wi-Fi signal of soul, be powerful enough to power not only me and my message, but in a way be able to will myself into believing that you are real. And it's almost like I'm acting for two people as
Yeah,
opposed to just the one.
Yeah.
And so the challenge for the actor is even more immense to have to be able to act for two people rather than just the one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's I genuinely hope that that's a challenge that actors take full on rather than shy away from. Go, well, I guess that's technology. I'll just quit now and go be a whatever, fucking
Right.
banker, accountant, something or other. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it definitely opens up more various characters.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to be so many different things now to fit the technology.
Yes.
That's provided for
Yes.
you, right?
Yes. I mean, did you see the Jungle Book movie that came out maybe about 2 years ago, thereabouts?
Yeah.
That kid literally plucked off the streets, never done a film in his life.
Right.
And if you've seen the behind the scenes, it's just this untrained kid who is working in a giant green screen studio and is told, all right, that's not actually a glass, that's just a cube we've wrapped in green screen. That's going to be whatever, Shere Khan or Baloo the bear.
Yeah.
And if not for that kid's ability to have this highly vivid imagination, highly sensitive instrument, that would quite really look like if I can block wrapped in green paper, as
Yeah.
opposed to whatever Baloo the bear or Shere Khan the tiger or whatever it is. That's amazing to think that that's possible.
But when you practice acting at home, right?
Yep.
You're not always at the studio and it's like one go and then you do it, right? I mean, you practice at home,
Yep.
right? A lot,
Yep.
and so then there's nobody there, right?
Right.
Or it could be a friend and
Yeah.
doing the other person for you,
Yep.
but like basically you're there, no set, nothing, right?
Yep.
So you're like immersed in your emotions and you're always thinking about how I'm gonna do this in the studio, right? So is it kind of similar to that? Like you have to like really imagine yourself being in a situation. I mean, that's what actors do.
Yes. Okay, so the most widely accepted short definition of what acting is behaving truthfully under imaginary circumstances. And people always associate acting to lying or acting to pretending or there's nothing true about acting, and that could not be further from the truth. It is first and foremost about telling the truth and being truthful. And the imaginary circumstances are what people then associate with why this is lying or pretending. Even if it is imaginary circumstances like I'm in the jungle or I'm at home rehearsing for the Jungle Book or whatever it is, I still need to be as truthful as I possibly can. Now, say for example, we are not in the studio. We are in the middle of the Amazon. How might you behave if you were in the middle of the Amazon right now, Taka?
How would I behave?
Yeah.
Well, I'll be very mindful about my surroundings, right? I mean, there's going to be like insects coming at me, animals.
Okay.
It could be dangerous animals.
Okay.
It could be like a dangerous reptile trying to
Okay.
bite my leg.
Okay.
So I'll be a little bit edgy.
You'd be a little bit edgy. You might be a little bit more mindful of
Yeah.
where you're walking. If we talk about the weather, what sort of weather would we be having
Yeah.
right now in the Amazon?
Right. Well,
Like-
it'll be wet.
Wet and hot,
Hot,
and just
yeah.
humid,
Yeah.
right? So already that begins to affect how you move because everything just feels muggy and heavy.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that you're constantly looking around for different threats. So then already without even doing very much, you've already sort of transported yourself to the Amazon simply by going, I've never maybe been there, but I can imagine what it feels like a little bit.
Yeah.
How can I behave truthfully even though I'm not in that circumstance? So if I've never been there, can I watch documentaries? Can I watch films? Can I talk to people who've been there? Can I relate this to an experience that I have had? Maybe I've been somewhere hot and muggy where I've had to sort of be mindful of where I step into, where I can take those experiences or I can take the experiences of others, I meld it together, and I become the conduit. I become that vessel
yeah.
for whatever story that I need to tell.
Right.
But it always, always, always is underpinned by truth and truthful behavior.
Right.
And that is to me the most beautiful part about acting is that you cannot get away with bullshit. Absolutely, there's zero room for bullshit.
Right. Because people can sense that shit, right? From a mile away.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. A
Yeah.
mile away, they
I
can
mean,
smell that.
You see a shitty theater, maybe you know it's shitty, right? Like instantly.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be an expert, right?
Absolutely. In
Yeah.
fact, I would go so far as to say that acting is the only art form where nobody wants to see your technique.
Right.
And acting is the only art form where when they do see your technique, they go, well, that's a terrible actor. Where if you think about it, right? The American Idol, whatever singer who does the high C, beautiful aria, you go, oh, wow, that's so amazing. I could never do that. The triple axel somersault, Swan Lake, whatever.
Yeah.
So beautiful. I could never do that. But when you watch an actor, if they are really, truly being truthful under imaginary circumstances, you watching it go, wait, that's it? I could do that.
Right.
Oh, yeah, asshole? Go and try yourself if you really think you're the next Christian Bale.
Right.
And it's really, really, really difficult to be able to be truthful in like a green screen, or even if you have a full-on built set. Your logical mind tells you you are not actually in the Amazon. You are in Fox Studios in Sydney, Australia, and these are all just props.
Yeah.
How do you still behave truthfully in those circumstances? It takes a huge amount of willpower to will yourself to believe that you are someone else and something else and somewhere else.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's not just you having to believe it. You literally have to will everyone else watching that you have to believe it. My God, that is incredible. Like almost alchemy that happens on behalf of the actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because now people demand that, right? I mean, if it's not that, you don't want it anymore.
Right, right.
Whereas like in the past, if you watch any movies from the 40s or 30s, I mean, it wasn't like that, right?
Not at all.
It seemed like it was,
It's all very
active.
vaudevillian, very larger than life, very drawing room comedy. It is, alas and alack, I am feeling feverish and all that shit, right?
Yeah.
Which, yes, for the time, it had its place, it had its value. But as we begin to be more discerning of, I want my story to be told on screen, I want my life to be reflected on screen, people then go, I don't fucking behave like that. I don't want, oh, I've got the hot flashes.
Yeah.
People don't want that.
Yeah.
They want someone who can reflect them. And like we were talking earlier on about how acting has evolved vastly in the last 50, 60, 70 years. You have this larger than life work that's now evolved into and I think we were mentioning Marlon Brando early on about how he's the first person or one of the first big people to then take this larger than life acting, this theatrical style of acting, and go, no, let's bring it down. Let's really bring it down to the most intimate, intense way possible externally. But on top of that, internally, let's have our internal mechanisms firing up. Let's have all of this internal strife and struggle and inner life that's happening. So even on the surface, if I'm going, I'm fine, everything's fine, you feel all of this stuff underneath the surface.
Yeah.
And you go, fuck, that's me, where out there, I'm desperately trying to tell my boss, I'm fine, everything's okay. And underneath, you have no idea that I'm suffering from cancer, that I'm dealing with bills, that I'm all of these things and all of this stuff. Because out there, acting is the greatest social lubricant.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so on screen, to have someone reflect my experience of I'm acting simply so I can get through fucking life.
Yeah.
Brando was the first person to really, really kind of corner that market.
Right.
And then people sort of, there's almost like a pre-Brando, post-Brando era in acting.
Yeah.
And then eventually people began to associate Brando with the mumblecore actor, which is so obsessed with the inner life that you began to forget almost the outer life, where is the style of acting that became sort of part of the course for a while. People went, okay, there's a lot of stuff happening on the inside. I don't know what the hell you're saying. Where the previous vaudevillian actor, which is, I am feeling this way, right? This is way over the top, but at least I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So then we are now getting to a place where, interestingly enough, the American style of acting, which is the psychological realism, was really, really popular from the 50s all the way until, I'd say, even the 90s or early 2000s, where we're now seeing Hollywood start to favor the British trained actor. Where the British trained actor has been very clever in trying to figure out how can we borrow the best aspects of the American style of psychological realism and marry that with the Shakespearean sort of acting where our elocution is on point, our enunciation is on point, where our external manipulation of character is on point, where people don't realize Christian Bale is actually Welsh. Anthony Hopkins is Welsh. Daniel Day-Lewis is not American.
Right.
And people don't realize that because they sound and they look so American. You
Yeah,
just
yeah.
assume, oh, they're clearly American actors.
Yeah,
And they're not. They're all British trained actors.
Huh.
And that's where we're going.
Right.
Where these guys have managed to marry a beautiful, rich outer life with a beautiful, rich inner life. That's where we are now.
Wow. And why do you think Brando came up with, or was it Brando that personally came up with this thing, or was it like a movement somewhere in the back where that like inflection point happened?
So we go back a little bit in time.
Yeah.
Now we go back to the end of the 19th century. There is a Russian gentleman, and his name is Konstantin Stanislavski. He's an actor. He's a director. He's got a theater company in Moscow called the Moscow Art Theater, and he is extremely obsessed with trying to figure out how do you make acting more consistent and real and believable. I don't want the big drawing room kind of right. And also, even if I don't want to tell these stories, if I tell real, true social stories, how can I get my actors to be consistent on a Thursday night and on a Friday night, on a Saturday night, on a Sunday night, where previously you could be really brilliant on a Thursday night, and then all your friends watch on Thursday night, oh my God, Taka was so brilliant. You tell all your other friends, okay, go on Friday night because Thursday night I had a damn good time.
Right.
Another group of friends come on Friday night, I heard he's going to be really, really, really good. Come on Friday night, and because there's no consistent way of working, you absolutely just suck balls on Friday night. And then the second group of friends tells the first group of friends, yo, I thought you said he was like the bee's knees. What's going on? Right? And so Stanislavski said, okay, this clearly cannot do. We've got to find a consistent way of working on top of trying to find a new way of telling stories.
Okay.
So with his group of actors, he decided to take basically this very broad brushstrokes, every example of acting that existed, every different example of exercises in relation to the development of the actor that existed, all the Socrates principles, all the Plato-like principles in relation to acting, all the Diderot philosophies of acting. And he said, all right, let's just test everything out so we can come up with like what are the consistent qualities one needs to play the part. And he came up with what is known as the Stanislavski system. And from this system, every single modern methodology of acting has stemmed from his system.
Right.
And so then what you had is in now the English-speaking Western world, you had a man by the name of Lee Strasberg who then went, oh, okay, now that I know this exists, and I won't go into details there, but basically he finds out this exists, let me focus on a certain part of his work and let me develop my own methodology of acting, which basically revolutionized acting in the English-speaking Western world. And from that, he trained a bunch of people who would later on start their own methodologies of acting, and he began to train people who would be who we classify now as the greats in acting. Your Paul Newmans, your James Deans, your Marilyn Monroes.
Oh, wow.
They all trained,
Wow.
your De Niro's, your Pacinos. They all trained with Lee Strasberg. And then what happened is, along the way, what you have is a maverick like Marlon Brando who trained a bit with Strasberg, although he credits Strasberg with nothing. He says Strasberg was a major asshole.
Okay.
And then he trained with other people, and he picked up some other people. There was an acting teacher. Her name was Stella Adler, who in many ways he regarded her as his surrogate mother because he had a very poor relationship with his mother. And so he went to different places. He studied with different people. But I truly believe that Marlon Brando was and is a once-in-a-generation or a multi-generation form of actor where he was almost... there was something very alpha male and brutish about what he did, but there was also something very soft and feminine and genteel and so sensitive about this big brutish character that he was able to appeal both to your alpha male man in the 50s, but also to the housewife who goes, oh, he's a heartthrob and he's so sensitive, right? And that's very sexist, but pardon me there. So now you're appealing to two different demographics. And this is a man who was so in tune with his physical instrument and his inner life that what you got was, I think if you genuinely asked him to explain his process, I don't think he would even have the words for it. I give you a case in point, okay? My favorite film of all time is a Brando film, and it's probably the one that people say, oh, that's when acting changed. It just so happens to also be my favorite film. It's called On the Waterfront.
Okay.
And in the film, he basically plays a dock worker, and who carries cargo, ship worker, a factory worker. And as the film progresses, he gets in trouble with the mob for many reasons. And the film, without giving too much away, he gets bruised and battered by a group of people. And in an act of sheer defiance, instead of staying down, he gets up and he walks back with this huge, heavy burden of having been almost having the shit kicked out of him, but this defiance of even if you beat me up, I'm still going to keep getting up and I'm still going to go back to work and you cannot stop me. And so there's a really iconic scene at the end where he's walking with this defiance, bruised and bloodied and beaten up, walking back to the factory, going back to work.
Yeah.
And for years, journalists had wondered, my God, Brando, there was so much that was going on in you. What were you working on? I don't want to talk about it. And then for years, journalists would hound him, we want to know. Towards the end of his life, and I don't know whether he was taking the mickey or not, but some journalists approached me and said, okay, you've lived a beautiful life. You've had such a varied career. Please tell me, 50 years on, what was your secret behind that walk with this defiance? And he said, truth be told, I knew that there was a porta potty in the factory. I just really needed to pee. And that angst and that agony in his face is supposedly just him with a really full bladder on set for the last God knows how long.
Right.
So
it worked.
It worked, right? But then, who the hell knows where Brando got his, that magical touch?
Yeah. Wow. And now you're saying that all that kind of mythology of acting now is blended with, you said, British style of acting. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because I don't know anything about British acting.
So the old school definition of your British trained actor was essentially someone who was classically trained, meaning that they had done Shakespeare over and over and over again. They had emphasized the external physicalization of the actor. They had emphasized the elocution of the actor. I must understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. If not, then therefore you are not talented because I don't understand you. Right? So it was all very much geared towards the external aspects of the actor. They tried to, for want of a better word, stayed away from the psychological aspects of things about wanting to tap into past memories or wanting to tap into the imagination and fantasy. They truly believed if you adapt the way you speak, if you adapt how you hold your body, more than enough. The audience does the rest of the work, or going, that's a villain, that's a hero, that's a bad guy, that's a good guy, that's a whatever. And that's more or less how they used to be trained. And so for the longest time, you had your American actors who were not the best at elocution, but they were able to physically manipulate their body. But more importantly, they had this strong, really, really, really strong inner life where the angst really felt like angst, the grief really felt like grief, the happiness really felt like it was coming from a true place. And so then, like your Dustin Hoffmans, they're not traditionally good-looking actors, whereas your English actor was very dashing and handsome. And so they're very almost diametrically opposite in that sense. And so what happened is somewhere along the line, someone must have said, okay, we want to join the party too. Hollywood still is the final frontier of success as far as making it. How can we begin to borrow in a way that we don't lose what works about what we do, but it only now elevates what we can do and do well? And so strangely over the last decade, 15, 20 years or so, you've seen a slow infiltration of British actors and even Aussie actors to a degree into the Hollywood market, where now what you're getting is they're almost more prized compared to the American actor, actually. Yeah.
Because of that.
Because of their ability to have a strong outer and inner life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely do see a lot of British and Australian. I just thought they were just coming in because they just speak English, right?
I mean, I'm sure that obviously helps.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I think what you still want is an actor who is able to do both. And I'd go so far as to say, if the last 15, 20 years have been the era of the white Caucasian Aussie actor, the white Caucasian British actor, we are now ever so slowly beginning to see, I wonder if these Asian actors have anything to tell us. I wonder if females have anything to tell us. And if you consider success to be numbers in the box office, then very, very, very clearly a diverse cast basically means big bucks at the box office. A cast that begins to reflect untapped markets, case in point, your Crazy Rich Asians phenomenon, very clearly means success at the box office.
Yeah.
A cast that very clearly begins to represent stories of women, almost always now, a success at the box office.
Right.
And I think there will come a time where the Asian actor is going to be at the forefront of being what is now considered the leading man in Hollywood. And I cannot wait for that day.
Yeah. I mean, I think remember from like Slumdog Millionaire that there was like this kind of more South Asian influence. I mean, maybe it's because of the Bollywood movement as well, but they started coming in, and then you started using more Chinese, like Jackie Chan, or some Japanese ones like Ken Watanabe, and they were predominantly still kind of like for Asian person role, right? Because they had to be the samurai, they had to be the kung fu guy. But now, because there's so much demand in this world to see diversification of ethnicities, genders,
abilities, even.
Yeah, that too. I mean, maybe that's something that you can tell me too. But like, from if you have like Asian actors, they were trained traditionally in, let's say, China or Hong Kong, Japan or India. They must bring in some very different mythologies into acting as well, right? And also, the women, the girl power stuff is like pretty obvious to me now, right? Because like there's so many female protagonists in movies, even like Terminator. The last Terminator was all women, right?
Correct,
it was just Arnold and then all women.
Correct. I mean, he only comes in for the last, spoiler alert again, the last like half an hour maybe at best.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so it's definitely becoming, you actually kind of feel it, right? Even the LGBTQ kind of movement is also, I see that too, right? They're putting that in there, even if it's like Netflix or something. You always have that content too, right? So it just definitely seems like there's it's like a mix of various things coming in right now.
Yep. I mean, and what you're witnessing is, and let's, on the one hand, you go, oh, this is the Crazy Rich Asians effect. I'm going to say it probably happened before the Crazy Rich Asians effect. I think that's what tipped the scales. What you are perhaps, or what people are not perhaps aware of, is one of the reasons why we were able to even get to that point is previously movies or the big studios, they had two forms of income generation, right? You either depended on your domestic box office or your international box office. And very often studios were willing to take a hit on the domestic box office because they knew like a crappy whatever superhero Transformers film, whatever, doesn't really land in the domestic box office, but it's going to be a big hit in China, in Japan, Indonesia, blah, 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 blah. And that more than makes up for it. And with now these Asian countries beginning to open up their doors to, we've got all bags and bags and bags of money. We want to put it somewhere. I wonder where we can put it. These Hollywood producers go, you have bags of money, you say? Well, wouldn't you like to invest it so that you can begin to sort of schmooze with some of the great white actors who have been leading the way? Yes, that's a great place for us to invest our money. And so then you've got China opening up and beginning to slowly invest. So now it's not uncommon for you to see not just your major tentpole pictures, but even your big award circuit cinema films to be sponsored by Tencent, to be sponsored by Alibaba Pictures, and all of these other China-backed media companies. And because there has been a slow sort of like infiltration of Chinese money, then they began to realize, wait a minute, you keep taking our money, but we're not getting any credit on the front end. There's got to be something that we can do. And then it went from just taking their money or just giving away the money to, all right, you want our money, you also have to put our actors in this. And then Hollywood goes, oh, crap. Hollywood's not ready for Chinese actors. Okay, you know what we'll do? We'll create like a non-speaking part or like a single monosyllabic like scientist in the background who will be from China, who'll be the like Fan Bingbing or something.
Yeah.
And then she'll have a 1 or 2 word part. And then there you see, we hit the quota, right? You give us the money, we put your best actress on screen. What more do you want?
Yeah.
China went, okay, that works for a while. But no. We realize how much you really need our money. You guys are running out of money. We got bags of it.
Right.
You really want our money. You're going to have to kind of begin to put our actors in the forefront. And so then what you had was, you had now major Hollywood actors then going to make films in China, like Matt Damon and I forget who else doing The Great Wall.
Yes.
Terrible film. Terrible film. But hey, I mean, Papa's got to buy some shoes, you know?
Yeah.
So then you also have now your Zhang Ziyis who are now infiltrating, and your other Chinese actors and your Japanese actors infiltrating, and not just beautiful women, but now your men who begin to infiltrate that market. And eventually, these guys who have been controlling all the film production go, okay, every time we make a film where we actually give more than just lip service to an Asian actor, it seems to do really, really, really well. And the craziest case study to actually look at is the Fast and Furious franchise, which is actually one of the most diverse film franchises out there in existence. It's got practically one person from every single ethnic quota that you can think of.
That's true.
Right? And it has done ridiculously well. Where now they go, okay, it clearly shows that when we put people of ethnic minorities who have never had their voice heard, there is some money to be earned. And it's always just, anytime there's success you follow, there'll be the trail of money. Which is what has then led to your Crazy Rich Asians, your Black Panther. More recently, there was a John Cho film, I think it's called Missing, that came out. Aquafina has a film called The Farewell that's doing really, really well. It is purely, first and foremost, always about the trail of money. And where does that money come from? And what's the end game here, which is butts in seats, money in pockets. Yeah.
So, but do you think it's just now, you know, it's kind of evident, right? I mean, because when you actually watch a movie and it says 10 cent on it, it's like, okay, obviously there's China money put in there, and then, you know, it has some kind of angle where like Chinese want to do something in that thing, right? But, you know, but aside from money, I mean, what else do you think they're bringing in as well, right? Because if you have Chinese actors starring in Hollywood movies, if you have Indian actors starring in Hollywood movies, I mean, they must bring some more artistic element that could be meshed with the traditional acting that they're doing, or the Hollywood has been doing. I mean, is there anything like that?
I hate to say it, but in my limited experience of seeing Asian actors now in your Hollywood films, for now it's still tokenism at best.
Right.
You might get like I said, you got your Henry Golding who is in your Crazy Rich Asians, right? But then there's no one else who could have played that part, right? So we take away the Crazy Rich Asians off the table, right? Then we see him now taking part in the ensemble cast of Last Christmas, which is like the new Love Actually.
Okay.
Or he's going to be in the new Guy Ritchie film, The Gentleman, that's coming out early next year. And you go, oh, wait a minute. That actually is somebody, a character that could have been played by anyone of any ethnic background, but they chose to put someone like him in those roles. Or a John Cho, or in that Missing, which is like that father looking for his missing daughter, right? Any person of any ethnicity could have played those parts. And so what at best you're seeing is actors who are now only being valued for their ability to still bring in the buck. I don't think they're necessarily being valued for what difference they bring to the table, other than you open a different audience market to me, which means more money in my bank account. And until and unless we have more films that require Asians to play parts that could have been played by anybody, then you'll begin to see whether we've got the chops or not.
Yeah.
Like on Netflix, I think earlier this year, there was a film called Always Be My Maybe with Randall Park from Fresh Off the Boat and Ali Wong, who's like she did Baby Cobra, like these big comedy specials.
Sure.
And then Keanu Reeves has like this a great cameo in it. For my liking, the movie was a piece of shit. Wasn't fantastic. It was just another rom-com. But I'm so glad that it got made.
Yeah.
And here's why I'm glad is because anyone could have played those parts.
Right.
But you chose two major Asian actors to be in those parts, which means that even though it's crap, it at least says Hollywood or the gatekeepers of Hollywood are open to having Asian actors play those parts. So it might start with us doing the token roles and the crappy roles and the stereotypical roles. At a certain point, as long as we keep bringing in the money, which these films have done, eventually Hollywood would go, I wonder what else you guys can do. I wonder what else this market can do. I wonder what all other stories are available from that part of the world. Now, consider, I think it was like DisneyCon or whatever they call it this year, where they introduced a new slew of movies coming out. They just announced their first ever Malaysian superhero. I don't know if you're aware of this. They just announced that one of the head writers for the original Crazy Rich Asians, she's going to be the head writer of a Disney princess type movie, but the princess type movie is set in Southeast Asia, so it's borrowing from Southeast Asian folk tales.
Okay. Right.
And so I'm gonna guess that a large number of the voices playing those parts will probably be famous white and black dudes and white and black women, so on and so forth. But I hope with all hope that these roles will go to Asians. I hope that Hollywood will then go, I wish and I hope that more stories can come from here. I want to mine all of the Oriental East for their rich heritage and culture and tradition and stories and characters even, because nobody can tell our stories like we can.
Sure, of course, yeah. Yeah. And then, but so you run a acting school, right? And I'm sure you're training your students to eventually, work in Hollywood, right? So they're gonna bring with them their characters, their stories, to Hollywood, right? And what is your desire for them when you teach these young actors and actresses?
Is that the truth is, I know that where we are in the market right now, purely from a show business standpoint, nothing to do with talent, just the business aspect of things, they don't have a hope in hell in making it in Hollywood. And that's purely from a business standpoint, nothing to do with talent, nothing to do with training. It's just purely the business aspect and the lay of the land.
Because you yourself went to Hollywood as well to...
Correct. And I played your full range of terrorists, taco salespeople, IT guys, you name it. Anyone on the fringes of society who's remotely brown and with a beard, that would be me.
Right.
I've died more times than I care to think about on screen. And I'm fully aware that we're still in the age of tokenism / minor roles, unless it's an Asian specific movie, right? Or an ethnic specific movie. What I'm hoping is that several things will happen, is that as your studios begin to seek for stories in the East, as your streaming services go, we've got lots of money, we just need to keep churning out content, like your Always Be My Maybe, that they'll begin to look for uncharted markets, like your Malaysia, like your China, like your Japan, like your Indonesia, like your Southeast Asian region. Can we give these people... Because a big movie in this part of the world is about $1 million to make, which is not even close to an independent film. Like, you can shit that much in a day, if not more, on a major tentpole, right? If we can give enough of these people $1 million here, $1 million there, $1 million here, which for us is big money, let's just see what content can come out of here.
Yeah.
And with the actors that I'm training, in a way, I'm training them for the long game. And I'm fully aware that most of them will not last the long game. So if they don't end up lasting the long game for when those opportunities arise, at least what I am developing is a more discerning audience, where when they watch TV, when they watch local TV especially, when they watch TV, when they watch films, when they watch plays, they go, yeah, no, my barometer of bullshit is high. I don't want to be fed a diet of bullshit. I want to be challenged. I want to think about things. I want my life reflected a little bit. That you have a more discerning audience. And a discerning audience ultimately has the power to tell the studios, don't feed us bullshit. Right?
Yeah.
You want my money. You want me to part in my $13 or my $10, whatever, for your streaming service. You better give me content that I desire.
Yeah.
That comes from a discerning audience. And then for those that last the long game, for when that wave does hit, oh, now we're cooking with gas. Where if Netflix, because they already have a Singapore office and APAC office, it's only a matter of time before they create their original content arm, development arm within Southeast Asia. You've got Hook in Southeast Asia. You've got, I think, is it iFlix, I think, which is an Indonesian streaming platform, which is now also developing original content. You've got your Apple TV streaming, whatever the hell it's called these days. Your Disney Plus, all of that stuff. It's now giving us an opportunity to say, we have a voice. It's time for us to be heard. But it's not just the visibility thing that I talked about earlier, but we have the training and the ability to harness the stories in a way that makes sense, and the way that it's alive, that people go, damn, why have we not seen these guys on TV or on screens before? That's the long game.
Yeah. I mean, I was telling another guest on this this podcast before, but when I was going through Netflix the other day, I watched a movie with all Filipino content. Right?
Okay.
And it was shot in Barcelona, but it went back and forth between Philippines and Barcelona. But it was an all Filipino cast. So I thought, wow, so then maybe, Netflix is like creating, content in Southeast Asia as well. I mean, my wife is South American. So, on my Netflix, we have tons of like Spanish.
Money Heist kind of thing. Yeah.
Loads of Spanish ones,
Yeah.
Colombian ones, whatever it is, loads of them in there. And, but, they're all created in those countries, right? In South America. And so I think there's going to be more and more Netflix content being created in Southeast Asia and all different parts of the world, right? For sure. And they're the ones that had the money to actually go out there and create it, because everybody who's living in there doesn't always want to see Hollywood stuff, right? Obviously. Or they want to hear something in their own language. And more as people get wealthier in this region, or Latin America, wherever it is, they are going to buy into this subscription, right? And then you have to create content to serve them.
Correct.
You're not just thinking about white Americans only anymore, right?
It's sort of like the previous way of the previous way we looked at. Now let's just talk Singapore, right? Island of 5.5 million people, where the previous way we used to look at content creation on this island, it was firstly made by Singapore, and then made for Singapore, and then now we're looking towards made with Singapore, where it would be almost so myopic and so idiotic and so tunnel vision to think, oh, an audience of 5.5 million people is more than enough for me to sustain myself. It's not. One has to really look overseas and figure out, how can I create stories that have resonance globally, and not just for around the dinner table, not just for my neighbor next door, but for that person 10,000 miles away who's never been to Singapore, where even if I've never been there, I'm still being told a story with such universal themes that I go, my God, I don't know these people. These people are not even my color. These people don't even speak my language, but they speak here.
Yeah.
And that is something that we need to consider. And I think which is what America is beginning to consider.
Right.
You can't only rely on the middle of America to buy into your bullshit Transformer films and your both coasts to only buy into your award-winning films. You've got to look at the international market. And I mean, by international, I mean the brown people market, right? The people who don't look like your white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's where the key is, where eventually, at a certain point, Taka, everyone's going to look like you or me, right?
Yeah.
And to think that
There's more of us, actually.
more of us. There's more of us, right? And our children and our children's children are going to look even more browner and more olive-skinned. That to only produce content which is single serving for a specific ethnic group or gender or person of ability, that is a very, very short period that they're walking off of.
Yeah. So what do you actually teach your students, and you also do like corporate communications as well, right? I mean, so through that your vision of how content is going to be created in the future. I mean, how are you prepping your students?
So within my community, I train not just professional actors, and who are trying to make it into the TV market, the film market, the theater scene, not just Singapore, not just regionally, but also internationally. The big bulk of my community within my studio, I call them creative double-lifers. These are people I term as having some sort of parent-approved profession, lawyers, doctors, bankers. They're in blockchain, Bitcoin, something or other where the parent goes, yes, I approve of my son and daughter. They are tax-paying citizens, and this is a real job. But a lot of these people, they don't feel fulfilled at these jobs. They feel like that fire that they had when they left graduate school has been very quickly squashed or diminished by the corporate life. And so they desire an outlet or a means to express themselves, especially in a world that desires homogenization. And so they come to my teachers and I after office hours or work hours to learn how to act, to write, to make films, to do poetry, to do stand-up comedy, to do improv comedy, you name it. They're looking to find a place where they can express themselves on stage or on camera in a healthy means of creating balance of that creative double life while maintaining that corporate commerce life. That's one group of creative double-lifers. The other group and big group of creative double-lifers that I have that come to my studio, they have zero desire of ever being on stage, zero desire of ever being on camera. They may not even want to be a passionate audience member. They just don't even like the arts. But they have read on LinkedIn, their HR manager has told them, the L&D person has told them that there is some sort of 21st century essential skill that the arts can potentially teach you. Even right now, if you Google 21st century skills on LinkedIn, you're talking critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, all of these things which people in the corporate world go, wow, that's brilliant, that's so amazing. And artists are going, we've been doing this our whole lives, right? And so you've got your creative double-lifers who are coming for these exact same workshops with a different objective in mind, where they want to take these skills, these tools, and find a way to make it relevant to their personal life and their professional life. And so they do that within the studio. But outside of the studio, I'm seeing an increasing emphasis in companies like your BBCs, your DBS banks, your OCBC, your Google, where your statutory boards, where they are now beginning to shift away from a focus on STEM subjects into STEAM, where that A standing for arts now has an equal footing in the emphasis of the education of people moving forward. And within the arts, there seems to be, again, that 21st century thinking of how do we make our people future-proof? How do we begin to make sure that their EQ can beat AI? How can we make sure that these people are going to be adaptable and they're still going to feel like they have some sort of purpose? Because very quickly, if a machine can do your job, you're fucked. Right?
Totally.
Very quickly, if you feel that you're not really contributing anything at work, you phone it in. No employer wants an employee who phones it in. And so I go into these companies and truthfully, I teach them things in many ways they know how to do, or at least they used to know how to do, but they forgot.
Right.
Even right now, you looking at me in the eye, right? And I see beautiful brown eyes. When is the last time you genuinely look someone in the eye? It is almost an unheard of concept in the office.
Right.
To be able to say hello and smile at someone is an almost unheard of concept in the office. To be able to be adaptable, to be able to think outside of the box, it's an almost unheard of concept in the office.
Yeah.
To be able to communicate your ideas in a succinct, in a specific manner, almost unheard of. Where you've got all the knowledge, all the skills, but you don't know how to translate it in a way that's understood by your peers. Almost unheard of. And that's exactly what I do when I go into these companies. I teach, I essentially bring theater into the workplace is what I like to call it, where I take a lot of the tools and skills from the theatrical arts, from the performing arts, and I unpack it in a way that it makes sense for these guys. So whether it's in banking, whether it's in communications, whether it's in whatever it is, essentially the same values are required across the board. How do I think critically? How do I communicate? How do I collaborate? How can I be creative so that I can be future-proof? How can I be EQ savvy? Because essentially, that is what's going to make my boss keep me, and that's what's going to keep me retained to this company.
Yeah.
That EQ.
Yeah.
And that's where the arts comes in, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. I mean, yeah, because even taking communication, right? Before, it was okay to stand behind a booth, read out from a paper, and then show this really boring presentation with so much language on it. Right? Now everything's becoming like TEDified, right?
Yes.
You have to have a little bit of theory in your movements, the way you speak. You got to catch people's attention, or otherwise everybody's just going to start, pixeling away, right?
Correct.
And you need that, because if you're going to go out and pitch to a potential client, or even pitch internally, you need that skill to grab your boss's attention, your client's attention, right? And more it's needed, because then a lot of the stuff that we were doing before as considered jobs, we were pushing paper, right? I mean, like, basically we were just processing shit, and now processing shit is being done by computers, right? I mean, there are all softwares out there that can do all the shit that you've been doing before. So what is there left of us that can actually do something then better than AI, right?
I'll tell you what it is. It's not pushing paper, it's pushing story. And that is something that people have been doing literally since the Stone Age, where like Ugg and his fellow cavemen would gather around the fire to hear the village headman. And we've been doing that for millennia, and it's still the same thing. People gravitate towards stories. People gravitate not towards fact and logic, they gravitate towards emotion. They gravitate towards that emotional resonance, that shared heat that people have. I can read a spreadsheet myself. Give me the PowerPoint deck. Don't waste my time for 3 hours. I'll read it my damn self.
Yeah, exactly.
What I'm buying into is a personality, or the cult of personality, or the story that comes with a personality. Of course, then we also have to look at the other side of it, which is then you've got your WeWork types, where you're going to be, that's again, another slippery slope for another day. But, so there are, again, the visibility of having the charisma and the cult of personality, but you also need that credibility that comes with it, where, okay, you tell a good story, but can I trust you? You tell a good story, but what are your intentions with this story? Because a good storyteller is also very quickly someone who can be a cult leader.
Totally.
Is very quickly someone who could be a dictator. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, as they call it.
Yeah, certainly. And I think that kind of goes into the same as how acting has evolved as well, right? Because fundamentally people want authenticity, right? And someone that's congruent with their feelings, and it can show it, and people smell that shit, right? As I said. So bringing that into the corporate space now more and more is like needed for that. And obviously, even with my staff, we have discussions about how we better ourselves at communication. We do a lot of like keynotes and panels and stuff for conferences as well. And in order to get better at it, I mean, we have to learn these skills, right? You can't be just standing there reading off a paper.
Because anyone can do that, really.
Exactly.
I mean, I'd be curious you've had such a long, varied career. I'd be curious, whether it's here, whether it's overseas, what are some of the common issues that you have seen your average corporate worker or warrior face that
Mm.
I wish these people knew that this is a problem, and I wish they knew that there were solutions? What are some of the common problems that you've seen in your time in the finance world?
I actually, wanted to see people who are like really loving their job,
Mm.
right? And I think that comes from, like having meaning in your life, and then having and then seeing that meaning in your job as well,
Mm.
right? Because as easy to say I live for the weekends, or I'm looking forward to my retirement to do nothing. I mean, what about your whole fucking other life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's much longer than your weekend
Mm.
or your retirement,
Mm.
So if they can't find that passion in their job,
Mm.
it doesn't reflect to the productivity, the outputs, or even coming into the office with a smile, right? As you said, like looking people in the
Yeah.
eye.
Yeah.
Because if they're not happy with it, they look down, they look away.
Yeah.
They just kind of going through the motions, right? So having that, being able to look inside and find what you really want to do is probably more and more needed now, because as I say, AI is going to replace a lot of that job, right? So if you don't find that passion about your job, you're not going to hold on to it, because you're going to be in the bottom of the list that people and that your employers want to keep you, right? So that's why, like, I worked with a lot of distressed companies, right? The companies that are going through, financial problems. It could be, business performance, and we invested in those business to turn them around. That was my job for like 18 years. And when you go into these offices, you actually see that, right? Because they know they're going through, tough shit. And you can see in their eyes, their facial expressions, and I used to joke to a lot of people, I even go to the bathroom and see how clean it is. Because if you don't respect your workplace, you're just going to trash it, right? So, so if you see that, and it's like, you definitely know that there's a human problem that's going on. That has nothing to do with just financial problems of the business, right? So you need to fix that first before you can even think about finance and all that stuff. So, I think that's really necessary, in your line of job too, is like when you teach people, be authentic about yourself, and then, take it out and then show it, if they don't, it'll quickly show to them that this job is what you really want to do, right? Because if they can't show that passion when they pitch it to a client or whatever it is, if you're not excited about it, it's not going to come out, right? And then oh fuck, I don't like this job, right?
It reminds me of so there's this thing that I constantly drum into the heads of my students, and it's a really, really simple phrase, if I can share it with you.
Yeah, please.
And it is very simply, when you're interested, you're interesting.
Yeah.
That's it. And it doesn't matter whether it's art, it's life. When you're interested in something or someone, you automatically just become interesting. It's not about you. It really is about serving a greater purpose. It really is about serving the other person in the transaction. It really is about serving the story. It's about really serving the character. It's about really serving the client. How can you be so interested in helping that person solve that problem, or figure out a solution, or tell the story in a way that you are so deeply in tune and invested physically, mentally, spiritually, where all of you is that's when you become so immensely interesting. And I'm really, really hoping that moving forward we figure out how not just your artists, but also the person who is maybe going to listen to this podcast, who's sitting at their desk at lunchtime, like miserably eating their poke bowl or whatever it is, thinking,
or in the MRT,
they're thinking to themselves, I'm just fucking miserable. When did that happen? Because I don't think anyone goes into their jobs thinking, I cannot wait to be miserable. At one point, they were deeply excited and passionate. Where did that interest die? How can they find the game in it again? How can they be interested in it again? And maybe that job is not for them. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it is, can we get to a place where wild idea, maybe it's not in the world of commerce. Maybe it's tilling the land again. As crazy as that sounds, death of a salesman. I don't want to be in the office. I want to till the land, like I be with the wild horses. Maybe it's that. But how can we get people to be deeply interested and invested again? And what we will have when we have people who are interested is you immediately solve the problem of absence in the workplace, mental and spiritual absence in the workplace. You immediately solve this lack of emotional connection because, as you said, people who are there, who will survive the rise of the machines, are there because they are deeply passionate about what they do. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally. And yeah, exactly. And I agree with you 100% on that. And I think that's the way of like how human beings have to be, right? Because, you know, now we're talking about so much about spirituality and happiness in life and what that means. You know, people don't really think about what happiness actually is, right? I mean, they think it's like coming in the form of a butterfly or a bird and kind of landing on you. It's like all of a sudden you're happy. No, you have to fucking do it yourself.
Right.
You have to make that option.
Correct.
To be happy.
Correct.
And then you have to eliminate all the crap that you don't like out of your life.
That drains that energy from you.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
And if one of those eliminations is your job, then there's a problem, right? You gotta find something that you want to do and hope that it makes money, right? But still have to, even if it doesn't make that much money, right? You still have to be valuing that over the stress, the negativity that comes with it in your life, right?
How do you find those coping mechanisms if that's your only way out? There's a philosopher who's now since passed on, Alan Watts, and he's got these beautiful audio clips that you can find hours and hours and hours of footage on YouTube on. And one of my more favorite ones is if money were no object. And so he poses this question to his class: if money were no object, what would you want to be? What would you want to do? If you could do anything in the world, you could be anything in the world. They want to be poets. They want to work in the fields. They want to get their hands dirty. They want to be artists. They don't want to slave away at a desk. And then you go, but the world says any of these occupations I mentioned are not real jobs. And then his answer to that is, well, if you put in enough time, money, effort, energy into that thing, and you become a master, whatever it is, cheesemaker, if you become a master in that, at some point, at some time, someone's going to pay you for that.
Yeah.
And all the more, they're going to feed off your passion and your interest in that. And your passion and interest will sustain you in that job, that eventually you will make that money. But to be able to convince yourself to be miserable at a job that barely gets you enough money so that you can look forward to a retirement, so you can look forward to that weekend, to then breed a whole new generation of people who you tell your kids, your grandkids, that the only way you can be happy is to actually be miserable and to chase money that you don't really, you're told that you want, to build a lifestyle that really is only there to plug the gaps of how miserable you are Monday through Friday. What a miserable fucking vicious cycle that is.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that sort of thinking is well ahead of its time, because what he's essentially saying, if you ask me, is how do you find your ikigai a little bit?
Exactly.
You know,
totally.
and whether it's the arts or whether it's commerce, where are you putting your interest at the end of the day?
Yeah. It's a huge theme for us, going forward. Well, thank you a lot, Kamil. I mean, this was awesome. I really loved our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Future Design Podcast.